How about this? You know what they're saying? Jack of all trades, master of none. But first of all, I read this full comment the first time in my life in full context a month ago. And it blew my mind. Something this simple blew my mind.
Okay.
So here you go. What if I told you that 90% of us have never heard or read that entire quote in its full context? And what if I told you that after we did read it, it could be the key to unlocking another level of drive and confidence for some of us?
That quote. Okay, I'm gonna go with you.
I'm gonna explain it after the intro.
Sound like a winner.
Twitter, Instagram, @thisisbtc. Hit us on the email, podbtc@gmail.com. Yo, so this full quote blew my mind. You ready for it?
Go.
All right, here it is.
Go for it.
Here's the quote in its entirety.
Okay.
A jack of all trades
All right.
is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
That's the full quote.
That's the full quote. For my entire life.
Dude,
I want you to understand my passion for this.
you don't like lack of information.
No.
That's not a thing.
Give me all of it and let me make the choice. Now, sometimes I'm guilty of this. My wife has pointed out to me when I try to make decisions for other people. Mm-hmm. Give all of the information that's available and let me make the choice. Mm-hmm. My entire life, I've only heard jack of all trades, master of none. Mm-hmm. And it was always a negative connotation to it. Mm-hmm. And like someone who's a jack of all trades is like, they're not an expert. They can't make up their minds. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I've always felt a little inadequate because I'm the person that just has a bunch of different interests. I read a little bit on a lot of topics.
Right.
I know general stuff about a lot of stuff.
Things, right.
And it's just this. I've always been made to feel like that's a bad thing.
Dude, now, first of all, that is so absolutely correct. Think about it logically. Mm-hmm. The broader your base of knowledge, the more useful you are.
Yeah, that's it. You know how empowered I was after hearing that? I don't think you understand, E.
Well, my name is Jack, baby.
Listen. All right, so here's some context of where how it even came up. I listened to this podcast. I don't know how many people know who Larry Wilmore is, but Larry Wilmore is he's a comedic writer. He is responsible for helping create Insecure, the show on HBO. He's responsible for helping create Blackish.
Okay.
Back in the day, he wrote on Fresh Prince.
Got some skill.
He had a nightly talk show on Comedy Central called The Nightly Show with Larry Wilmore back in the day.
I remember that.
All right. So he has a podcast called Black on the Air. Love that title. Mm-hmm. Black on the Air with Larry Wilmore. So a few weeks ago, he had this guy named Dave Epstein on. And Dave Epstein is an author, and he's the author of an upcoming book called Range, mm-hmm. how generalists, how generalists triumph in a specialized world. And his working theory for the book is being a generalist in society is often better than specializing, especially specializing early on. And so a lot of the things that he examples in his book that he references are how at younger and younger ages, we're trying to push our kids to specialize earlier. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, no, allow them to find their areas, learn about a lot of different things. Because what happens is when they do pick their thing, right, they're going to put a lot of focus into it anyway, but then they're also more well-rounded.
Clear.
Right?
Clear.
And so it blew my mind when he said that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, wow. my whole life, I just thought that like just being someone who just knew a lot about a little about a lot was kind of like, oh, you just can't focus.
You know, we never thought about it. What if all you could do was, I don't know, make lasagna?
It's boring.
And then you get into the kitchen with somebody that can do lasagna and chicken and turkey and fish and potato this and whatever. You know, and maybe your lasagna is the jam.
Yeah.
But all the rest of their food is pretty good.
Right. All right. I want to say this quote again.
We're going to need therapy for you.
I might. I'm going to say this quote again, and then after the quote, what we're going to do is just briefly talk about the difference between a generalist and a specialist.
Okay.
The generalist clearly would be the jack of all trades. The specialist would be the master of one. Okay.
Absolutely.
And just the pros and cons, and then we'll get out of here.
Got it.
All right. So the full quote again. Mm-hmm. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Absolutely.
And the key word that transitions one part of the sentence to the other is oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And so what we're talking about today is not for every single situation, but just in general, how both can be perceived and the pros and cons of each. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what would you say a generalist is, Eric?
A generalist is a person that has a broad knowledge of whatever the topic is, can do a little bit of a lot of things, but just a broad topic of whatever the topic is, they have a broad knowledge.
Right.
Not deep, but broad.
And a specialist.
Deep knowledge about a little.
Yes.
I'll give you in our society, right now, let's say you want to go for your PhD.
Correct.
You will write a thesis statement, probably not too much longer than 2 or 3 sentences, and you will defend that. And we will confer upon you a degree of PhD. I'll meet you and we'll say, man, that Brian, he knows a lot of stuff. He knows a lot of stuff about 3 sentences.
True. I get it.
And you do. It's a deep knowledge of that topic. However, there may be somebody in one of those other roles not nearly as deep in that topic, but has a surface knowledge of a bunch of topics similar to that.
Right.
So what do you want? If I want a deep dive into that topic, I'm coming to the person that knows it.
Correct.
If I want general information, I don't need all that.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into the pros and cons of each, to you, like you always say, you know, you've had a lot of birthdays.
A couple of birthdays.
So, but in your experience, especially in your role as a consultant, leadership management consultant, and things like that, training, which is perceived, or what's the perception of both in organizations?
Well,
which one would be of value?
If I'm moving up in an organization, I gave my own personal. I made a choice years ago. My background is psychology and education. I made a choice many years ago to do that in corporate America.
Okay.
Every vice president I've reported to had to become a generalist. I never became a generalist.
Wow.
Because he's got to manage my function and that function and her function and their function. And by the time you're done, he's got to know just enough about all of them to make intelligent decisions.
Gotcha.
But he doesn't deep dive. That's not his job. He hires people to do.
And it's interesting because when I was reading up more on this topic, that's exactly what they were saying was one of the pros.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right into it then. The pros and cons of being a generalist, and you know, we'll get our thoughts on some of these pros and cons. Crazy enough, the pros, and every article that I read, every place I went, there are more pros to being a generalist.
There are.
Yeah. So
There are.
one of the pros is generalists have a broad knowledge on a range of issues.
True.
And this can help with seeing the bigger picture where specialists might be laser or tunnel focused.
And bigger picture, that is a strategic requirement of senior executives.
Right.
They have to have big picture thinking.
Okay. Next pro. Generalists tend to have more transferable skills. Businesses and workplaces always need to be able to scale.
Absolutely. A generalist, for instance, let's say you're in the accounting practice. There are forensic accountants.
Correct.
Well, if you just stayed in forensic accounting and didn't understand some of the other parts of that practice.
Correct.
What if I didn't need a forensic accountant in my organization?
Yeah. So like, with accounting specifically, right?
Yeah.
Some of your areas of focus could be tax, forensic, audit, or you could be more operational. So I fall more operational, right? Of course, every organization is going to need a tax accountant. Every organization is going to need somebody in the audit. And so that's cool to kind of specialize in that area.
Operation is broader, though.
Operation is broader.
Right.
Operation is broader.
Absolutely.
I can generally go into any business, and what it takes is just for me to learn the business. The accounting part is there. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. Journalists are going to be in charge more because of the big picture view. And, they're going to they'll have enough knowledge to kind of move things.
I told you about this telekinetic link, right? The next tip is exactly that. I mean, the next pro is exactly that. Generalists tend to be better managers and leaders in organizations.
They know just enough to keep everybody encouraged.
Right.
Absolutely.
And while we're saying this, just because you specialize in an area does not mean that you can't become a generalist.
No.
And vice versa.
It's simply expanding your knowledge base.
Correct. And vice versa.
Yeah.
So sometimes generalists need to burrow down more.
Yeah.
And sometimes specialists need to expand and pull back some.
Absolutely.
Generalists can potentially have a more flexible career, more career flexibility.
Because you can go different places and they may not need this, but you're able to do this.
Kind of like what we just said, right? Like as a operational accountant, I can kind of move from business to business, and really all it takes for me to understand the accounting is to understand the business.
Absolutely.
All right. Generalists can be better at navigating uncertainty.
Well, they figure wherever you go, I can do something.
Yeah.
If you're a good all-around cook, I don't know what I'm thinking about food. Maybe it's what's going on. If you're a good all-around cook,
right,
you can go into another style restaurant, learn their recipes, and because you can cook, you're going to be, if you're a good, well-rounded cook, you're going to be able to adapt and make those.
So you're currently working on a book about why your company has to lay you off, correct?
Absolutely.
So I would say, and this is from experience too, in these situations, sometimes the specialists are the ones to get cut.
First ones. Because their use is deep and it's powerful, but the generalist, I'll cheat and say, look, let me let my specialist go, and let my generalist kind of pick up work
the slack.
and kind of move over.
Yeah.
And that's the way businesses run.
Yeah.
Think of somebody that can play 2 or 3 positions.
Brian.
Yeah. And then somebody else got to go. We're going to miss you.
We're going to miss you.
So, the more things you can do.
Yeah. All right, the cons of being a generalist.
Yeah.
Generalists typically sacrifice depth for breadth. Think of the iceberg analogy, right? Yeah. It's kind of what we just talked about. Sometimes generalists need to burrow down more on certain topics, and sometimes specialists need to pull back and kind of get a bigger view.
I can go to my general practitioner, and he's spot on.
Yep.
However, if I really need something done to my heart, I probably do want that cardiologist.
Yep. Generalists could suffer from a lack of job security, especially when it calls for having special skills or more expert knowledge on something. Makes sense.
That's a wrap. Yeah.
All right. How about specialists? Let's move to the pros and cons of being a specialist.
Yes.
The pros of being a specialist. Specialists can potentially earn more money.
I'm going back to that cardiologist again.
Yeah. If you're the person.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Specialists tend to become highly valuable and integral to an organization because of their expertise.
You want at least one.
Yep.
Now, too many specialists, and refer to some of the earlier shows about keeping that relationship going with your boss.
Yeah.
But you want at least one specialist.
At least one.
Yeah.
Specialists can become thought leaders in society, going back to your point about the PhD thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Some of the cons. Or you take that? You take those one.
Some specialists tend to become limited in career options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because if you don't need a specialist that time.
So I had a buddy, right? And rest in peace. He died at a very young age a couple years ago. But he like when the last big layoff thing happened, maybe 6 years ago, when NRG kind of bought our company or whatever, he was without work for like a year and a half. And I know this guy was bright.
Yeah.
What he ended up telling me was at almost every other interview that he went to, they told him that his knowledge was too specialized. He was what we call a derivative accountant, and derivative accountants focus on like the market and the special accounting around financial instruments and stuff like that.
We're still trying to understand derivatives.
Exactly. But he knew it. He knew the accounting. He knew all the rules inside and out. They kept saying like, yo, like we just need a regular accountant. Like you're not going to be happy doing this role. And they judged him because of that specialized experience. It took him almost 2 years to find employment again.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
That's where it hurt him.
It did.
Well, think about it. And I'm picking on doctors because we got so many people that are friends of ours. But think about a clinic that's trying to hire a GP, and I've been out here being a cardiologist or, whatever the specialty is.
Correct.
That's not who they want. They want a GP.
They want a GP.
They can handle the whole family
thing.
medicine, internal. They want that well-rounded general. When a specialist challenge comes up, then they'll send me to that person.
Correct.
But I want somebody broad.
That's it.
Yeah.
What's the next con for a specialist?
The next one is you may not be sought out for broader issues, and that's like the example was the closer of a baseball game.
Yep.
That's what he does.
Yeah. That's it.
Hold it. If you're watching a basketball game, you got a 7'4" guy that can't hit free throws.
He might need to call a specialist.
You put him in on defense,
That's
the
it.
SWAT,
That's
and
it.
if you can take him out on offense, you take him out.
That's it.
So, yeah.
Last one.
Specialists may face stiff competition in the job market from other specialists. Yeah.
The market starts to contract when it's too many people.
Absolutely.
In one small area.
Absolutely. And we see that all the time.
We do see it.
We see it all the time. So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a specialist. Trust me, you can get paid nicely. You can have a great career. You can help a lot of people. Generalists, if you have a broader perspective on things, you're usually able to guide a larger number of people.
Closing thoughts, what you got?
Hey, whatever works. If you're a generalist, you like to do broad things, go for it. If you want to drill deep, go for it. Whatever makes you happy, whatever works for you, do it. Don't worry about it.
My closing thought is going to go back.
He's still freaking out over the
Yes.
Like, what are y'all telling me?
Listen, my closing thought is going back to the passion I had at the top of this show.
Yeah.
Stop telling people who have multiple interests that that's not what they're supposed to be doing. Just because they're a jack of trades, a jack of all trades, does not mean...
Do not dog them out.
Don't dog them out.
No.
I'm telling you, it still blows my mind at this quote.
No, man.
Hey, shout out to my specialists, though, because I think there's, in all honesty, there's a balance that exists between specialists and generalists where we reside and we all work together.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
And generally, to be a specialist, you have to have at least base generalist knowledge.
You do, on something.
So sometimes it's time to go back and kind of, brush up on that one.
All right. Hey, guys, that was episode 50.
Yep, that one.
Yeah, that one. Episode 56 of the Beyond the Cubicle podcast. Jack of all trades versus master of one.
Yes.
Dig down into that subject some more.
Yeah.
Everyone be empowered. Be confident in your abilities. We'll see y'all on the next episode.
Do it, guys.